What is up, Packers fans? Welcome into Pack-A-Day Happy Hour. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Thank you so much for being here. Should be a fun one today. Massive game coming up. Packers-Eagles feels extra huge coming off of that very brutal loss to the Carolina Panthers. And of course, losing Tucker Kraft as well. Feels like we need to see a little bit of positive momentum from this team. So hopefully that's what we see moving forward. I have about an hour here for you guys to answer as many questions as I can over that period of time. So we'll do that right away. Some quick injury news from today. Savion Williams did practice, so good news there. Only Nate Hobbs and LVN not practicing on Friday. So overall, solid injury report. I mean, again, Tucker Kraft's kind of the cloud that hovers over everything, but we just have to kind of come to terms with the fact that he's out for the year. He's done. Hopefully can be back relatively soon at the beginning of next year. Would think that the potential 4-game pup would be in play for Tuck, and then hopefully good to go after that. But again, a lot of ball game left, as Aaron Nagler would say, a lot of time to go before we can start talking about that. But as I said, I will get to all of your questions. Before I do so, just shout out to Luiges Pizza for sponsoring today's show. Listen, I've got a lot of victory pizzas stocked up, so Green Bay is going to have to start doing some victorying this upcoming week. Hopefully that starts, but I'll be honest. While I like to have them as victory pizzas, they're pretty good as coping pizzas too. If you need something to kind of get you through the week, get yourself a victory pizza or a coping pizza from Luigi's. They're all amazing, whether it's their, this week, I've been really enjoying their double sausage, double pepperoni, Big Daddy pizza, which has been absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorites. Their sauce is amazing. So real Wisconsin mozzarella, by the way, as well. So check them out, luigispizza.com, and on social media at Luigi's Pizza. Again, huge shout out to them for sponsoring today's show. Let's get to all those great questions. Nathaniel Hatmaker. A little bit of a hat guy myself, Nathaniel. I can't agree more about your take on Coach. I'm curious which take that is. What role does Steno play in all of the struggles, and does Green Bay make a change after the season? Would Hackett return to his former, I'm assuming you mean former role? He's still the same self. I've said this before, and I don't mean to sound like a broken record on it. I have almost no idea how to judge Adam Stenovich. He could be the best coordinator in the league or the worst coordinator in the league, or anything in between. And I don't know how we could gauge that from the outside looking in. He's not calling plays. So if the play calling were amazing or atrocious, we could say, oh, Steno does that well or does that terribly. The offense overall is fine. Maybe not up to expectations. Is that though on Matt? Is that on what Matt wants to play call and Matt wants to scheme? Or is that on Steno? Or is Steno saying like all the right things and maybe Matt's taking some of it, not listen? We just don't know. So I don't know how to judge Steno on anything other than what we hear. By all accounts, he's the consummate professional, does a great job, seems to know what he's talking about in the press conferences and things like that. But I wish I had a better way. Wish we had the all 22 of the practices and the coaching meetings and things like that so we could gauge some of it. It's just an impossibility to do. So your guess is as good as mine. I wish I could tell you I was a, offensive coordinator expert and exactly what Adam Stenovich does day to day. I just don't. And it's really tough to gauge again, whether he's doing it well or if he's doing it poorly. Could Luke Getsy or Nathaniel Hackett be in play for something like that? Potentially if they wanted to go in that direction, I'm sure they would open it up. I think what you have to recognize though, as well, is that Matt needs to be a little bit careful with coordinator, fires. He's, fired two defensive coordinators already. He's fired three special teams coordinators. He hasn't fired an offensive coordinator. He did lose, Hackett to a head coaching job. So he's on his second offensive coordinator, but you don't want to be in the reputation of, being the guy that just cuts bait with the coordinators and it's just that kind of scapegoats things, right? Then good coordinators don't necessarily want to come and work with you if that ends up being the case. So he probably needs to be a little bit careful there. And yeah, it's really tough to say whether or not that would be a smart move or not to move on from Adam Stenovich. My guess is no. I do have an episode tomorrow talking about the 12 things that Green Bay can do right here and right now as kind of like easy button fixes to help this team. I do talk a little bit about Adam Stenovich in that one and some ideas there. So keep an eye out for that tomorrow. God bless you, Andy, for handling the repeated fire Matt LaFleur rage bait this week. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in Matt LaFleur's tenure, the team usually starts the season off clunky and gets hot around December. That is generally the DNA of this team. They usually do get a little bit hot around December. Hopefully that's the case again this year. They're going to need a big November as well, though. Here's what I will say. I understand in totality the expectations that the team and that are on Matt LaFleur. I understand that. I don't think he's quite lived up to those expectations this year, although 5-2-1 is not, it's a lot different if you're sitting at like 3-5, right? Where that's a totally different conversation. I think it's an okay record. If not, again, maybe if they start the season 0-2 to Washington and Detroit and then go, 5-0-1 after that, does this feel different? Maybe, I don't know. But, I just think in more recent bias, obviously they lost to Carolina last week. The Browns game was a brutal one to lose. So those feel really, really crappy. What I would say to the Fire LaFleur people, as the non-self proclaimed, but apparently what some people think is the number one Matt LaFleur apologist, as much as I know that Green Bay is not going to fire Matt LaFleur during this season. You could call up 1265 and say, you need to fire Matt LaFleur. Or you could write them an angry letter or an email or whatever it is that you would like to do. And it would go over about the same way as if you wrote, or called your bank and said, give me $1 million. I want $1 million. You can say it over and over. It's not going to happen. So you're sort of just screaming into the void, or like the meme of just like yelling at a brick wall, right? There's not anything that's going to come of it. Doesn't mean you can't voice your frustrations. By all means, voice them away. But damn well, Matt LaFleur is not going anywhere during this season. I mean, barring some sort of, catastrophic failure, 7-game losing streak, losing the locker room, something like that. And at that point, the season's done with anyway. And they're 5-2-1. So if barring anything crazy, they're not going to move on. So that's number one. Number two is you and I and everyone is aware of the expectations on the team this year. So they're not going to move on anyway. Let's let Matt have the room to operate and breathe through the remainder of this year. And let's see where the chips fall. I talked about today, the 2010 to 2011 Packers went on a 19-game win streak, including winning the Super Bowl in the middle of that. And prior to that, they were 6-6 over their previous 12 games. They just allowed a New England Patriots offensive lineman to almost return a kick for a touchdown. Aaron Rodgers was beat up. Jermichael Finley was out for the year. And everything did not look great. Multiple people, I remember having extreme arguments with people because they were convinced that Mike McCarthy would never lead the Green Bay Packers into the Super Bowl or be able to win the big one. He wasn't the answer at head coach. And then lo and behold, they won the Super Bowl. This season is going to define a lot for this organization as a team, as a head coach, as all of it, and where they go from here. So to me, the conversation is a non-starter anyway. They are not going to fire him, nor should they fire him at this point. It's a ridiculous concept. Let's see what the end of the season brings, and let's see where the team is at. And the other thing you have to recognize too, and the other reason that I believe the way that I believe right now is, in the crazy world, let's just spin it the other way. Let's play devil's advocate and say Matt LaFleur is fired. Okay? Matt LaFleur is going to get fired. If I thought that there was a logical, clear successor or person that they could hire that would clearly be better, I would say, like, that would be interesting, right? Like, maybe there's even now it's not a conversation, but okay, that's a different conversation. You might, well, what about Jeff? I'd see people that are already upset with Jeff Hafley as the defensive coordinator. And now you want to make him head coach. And what's going to happen if they lose a couple games that are hit? Are you going to want to fire him right away? But if you take Hafley away and he's the head coach, now you've got to have Derek Ansley or somebody coach do the defensive coordinating and do all that. I don't think that makes you better. Now Adam Stenovich or maybe a Luke Getsy is calling the plays. I don't think that makes you better. So I don't think you get better. I don't think in any world that they're going to hire somebody from outside of the organization. Certainly don't think they're just going to call up John Gruden, who's got some stuff that I don't think maybe Green Bay wants to deal with, and bring him in right now, and not certainly in the middle of the season, and sign him do a Buck Stock Rivers sort of things. So my ask here is this: just again, be as frustrated as you want, be as angry as you want. If you want to call for him to be fired, that is absolutely within your right as a fan, and do what you want to do. But have a modicum of common sense to know, they ain't going to do it. That that there's not a better option out there right now. So let's just let the season play out, and let's let it breathe, and let's see what Matt does the rest of the year. And if he's great, awesome. problem solved. The whole thing was probably stupid to begin with. And if he has a massive failure the rest of this year, this team doesn't make the playoffs or is one and done and loses by 20 in the first round, all right, conversation time. And everyone will have their opportunity to, piss and moan and complain as much as they want and say, oh, it was a lost season or whatever. Yeah. And things probably look pretty ugly at that point in time. I don't think it's going to get there. I certainly don't hope that it gets there, but we'll see what it ultimately comes to. But again, there's no better option right now. They're not going to do it anyway. And this season's going to play out with Matt as head coach. So it just feels like a lot of wasted breath for something that on the surface right now looks completely ridiculous and is not going to happen anyway. That's probably the best way that I could put it. Most hated Chicagoan. Happy Friday, Andy. Looking forward to the weekend. Really enjoyed all the episodes this week, especially Justice's comments about Matt LaFleur. Summarized how many Packers fans are feeling right now. Go Pack, go. Yeah, again, I don't disagree. Some of the frustrations with Matt, and let me be clear, are totally fair. 100% so. Some of the play calling this past game, I thought was some of the worst that Matt LaFleur has done as a coach. And you just cannot come out flat against any opponent, especially at home, and just lose games that you very clearly should win. Those are games where, if you get a good effort, just in general, you win those two games and you have two less losses on your record right now. So listen, there's some adversity right now on this team and on Matt. And this is an adversity league. You're going to face it at some point. You better be ready to face it head on and overcome it and be better for it. And if you're not, you're going to fold and you're going to fail. And we're about to find out a lot about this Packers team. Is it fold and fail time? Or is it evolve and win time? My hope is that it's evolve and win time. For a seventh-year coach season, that should be unacceptable. Getting hot in December won't save us. Need to be hot now. Matt LaFleur's offense looks stale. We'll see what he does the rest of the way. Go Pack, go. We'll see. Thanks for answering my angry Matt LaFleur question on the members Q&A. It was definitely still emotional. I don't know if you've talked about this before. How does your grading work, points, value, etc.? Sorry if answered before. Yeah, I won't. You can check it out over on packreport.com. I put the whole description at the end of it every single week when I put the grades out there. But in general, every play, can go as low as a negative 2.0. Think of, I don't grade special teams, but think of Brandon Bostic in the NFC Championship game, right? Not to bring up a bad memory or throw Brandon under the bus or anything, but that's about as low of a grade as you could get on an individual play. That would be like a negative 2.0 play. A plus 2.0 would be, maybe the throw to I don't know if this would be quite there. I'd have to think about it, but like the throw to Greg Jennings in the Super Bowl to seal the game, right? Where you've got a razor thin margin to complete a pass and the Super Bowl's on the line. Like something like that would probably be in that conversation a little bit more for like a 2.0. If that was a touchdown, that would probably be like a 2.0 play, right? So like think of those as your extremes. On the vast majority of plays, like not that many, but probably like 8 of the 11 players on a play-to-play basis on average probably just get a base neutral grade, like a 0.0. And the ones that don't are usually like a plus 0.1 or a minus 0.1, somewhere in that range as well. So you're usually looking at small little fluctuations here and there with some high peaks for some really big moments, some low lows for some very bad moments. And I'm looking at what happened on the play. I hear people say all the time, well, you can't know exactly what they were supposed to do on the play. I'm not grading it like a coach would grade a player. I'm not bringing, Jaden Reed into my office afterwards and being like, Jaden, I didn't like what you did here. This is what the play call was. And here's what, no, it's going to be totally different. What I'm grading on is, again, your ability to make impact plays, your ability to not have negative impact plays. And then when you get one-on-one situations, for example, did you win or lose your one-on-one situation? So that's what I'm grading. I'm not grading, did so-and-so player exactly execute the play call the way that it was supposed to be made. I can't judge that. If I tried to grade that, it would be a fool's errand. So there's always going to be a gap. You have to understand what I can see and what I can't see. And I'm not grading any of the stuff that I can't see. I'm grading the stuff that I can see on tape, including some of the technique stuff, including some of the actually what happens on the play, whether you got beat, whether there a penalty, et cetera, et cetera. So that all kind of goes into the equation. And so every play can, again, be as high as +2, -2, and usually they're very small incremental increases above or below a plus or minus 0.1. If there was one thing on this team you can wave a wand and fix, and it helps us the most, offensive line for sure. Nothing is remotely close. Corner would be a quick second of just like, can I have 2 shutdown corners? That would be great as well. But if I could have a top-notch offensive line, this team I think could honestly go undefeated the rest of the way. Dead serious. So that is the 1A issue to me. No question about it. Listen, you've got playmakers at quarterback and running back. If your offensive line is protecting, you can stop. I posted the other day that this is what I love about Packers fandom. I posted something to the effect of, trying to see if I can find my tweet really quick here. It was from Dan Orlovsky, and he tweeted out about how the biggest issue remains the Packers offensive line. And I said something to the effect of, yes, that's their 1A issue. I'm going to see if I can find it really quick so I can just get you the full context here. If I can't find it in the next 20 seconds or so, I'll give up. I'll abandon ship. All right, sorry. I guess I can't find it. But anyway, it was a Dan Orlovsky tweet that basically said something of like the Packers offensive line is what needs to be the biggest fix. It's been the biggest issue. Here it is. All right. So Dan said on the Pat McAfee show, the Packers team can't go to the Super Bowl with the way their offensive line is playing. And then he retweeted himself basically and saying, this has been my number one concern with Green Bay all season long. And I said, yep. 1A issue remains offensive line play for the Packers, not play calling, not play design, not defense, not corner, not even special teams. The line is far underperformed and it can't win at a high level if it stays the same way. And then, of course, you have the people online that are saying, oh, again, it's just, you're trying to take blame away from Matt LaFleur. No, not trying to take away blame from Matt LaFleur. Also, Matt LaFleur is in charge of the offensive line play as his overall job description as well. My point being is, as much as you may hate some of the play calls, and I hate some of them as well, if everything's just blocked a little bit better for Jordan and for Josh, they're going to make things happen almost inherently on their own. When Jordan has had time this year, he is the best passer in the league. When you give him a clean pocket, he is 1A in pretty much every category. And when Josh Jacobs gets any running room, you know what Josh Jacobs is going to do. So if you could just fix the offensive line and make them play better, it almost doesn't matter what you call. If they're going to run block for Josh and if they're going to pass protect for Jordan, you're set. You're completely set. And they're going to put up 30 plus points every single game. And that's going to take some of the pressure off of the defense. And so, yeah, it is very clearly for me offensive line. And again, I don't think anything comes remotely close at the moment. Top 3 biggest surprises for the Packers this year could be anything in the 3 biggest letdowns or disappointments. Oh man, that's definitely putting me a little bit on the spot there, Ethan. All right, 3 biggest pleasant surprises. Colby Wooden, for sure, a big pleasant surprise. That's on the list for sure. Trying to think what else would be a pleasant surprise for Green Bay. I think everything else was like kind of expected to some real extent from like anybody that's doing well. You would say like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me all that much. So Colby Wooden's definitely the biggest surprise. I'll say this is maybe cheating a little bit, but the fact that Goody actually made the move for Micah Parsons and gave up 2 firsts and got one of the best players in the league and went ultra aggressive, I think that certainly still is to me a very large surprise. Yeah, I don't know that anything else, at least from an on the field standpoint, has been crazy surprising to me. I'll say Javon Bullard's playing the slot. I think Javon Bullard's playing the slot is a lot better than A, he gets credit for, and B, what I kind of expected going into the season. Still some one-on-one stuff and obvious passing downs where I don't think that that's where you necessarily want him, but his ability to rally to the football and play sort of that hybrid, almost linebacker corner spot, that if you can do it, it's very important in the league right now because he's basically almost playing like a weak side linebacker when he's in that nickel spot and you've only got 2 linebackers on the field. I think he's done a really, really good job of that. So I'll say Colby Wooden is 1. The all-in move for Micah is 2. And then the other pleasant surprise would be what Javon Bullard's giving them in the slot overall. Disappointments. losing to Cleveland and Carolina, just games that should not happen. The Tucker Craft injury, I mean, I know injuries happen, but it's still a massive disappointment. And then the offensive line play, we talked about it, but I never thought it would be as bleh as it's been so far. It's not bad, it's not terrible, but it's nowhere near as good as it needs to be. Logan, thank you so much for becoming a brand new member. Appreciate that, my friend. Kipperoni, happy Friday, Andy. Might be a dumb question, but why don't we play with more tempo, like 2-minute drill more often? Seems to flow better for me. Go Pack, go. I do think this team needs a little bit of an injection of energy and tempo. It doesn't necessarily fix the problems. You know, if your issues are somewhat play calling, pass protection, run blocking, and attention to detail and routes and things like that, and maybe being a little bit over aggressive at times, sometimes going hyper speed is not the best for you. It doesn't fix any of those issues, but I do just think that they need a little bit more of that rhythm and consistency and energy on offense. Just feels a little blah and stale right now. And I think they've got to figure out a way to kind of get that energy back. So I'm with you overall. I would like to see a little bit more of it. I think there's an opportunity there. And I think if they can do something like that, at least even in a couple, maybe drives per game, might be able to open up a few more things on offense. Adam, thanks a ton for the super chat. Appreciate that. Could be wrong, but hasn't Matt LaFleur always called pretty one-dimensional games against the bad teams this year? It's probably more noticeable, but I can remember it as far back as 2021, maybe saving the playbooks for better opponents. It's an interesting theory. I just think sometimes this under Matt LaFleur, they've laid eggs. It hasn't always been in against bad teams either. In the first season in San Fran, they went to San Fran against a very good team and they couldn't do anything. In their very first game of one of their regular season, I forget which year it was, 21, 22, against the New Orleans Saints on a neutral field, they completely no-showed. So I wish I knew why that was. I wish I knew, what the, main issue and culprit was as to why they're not getting up for certain games. But it's been a bit of an issue at times. And I wish I could make heads or tails of it as to why. Is it a Matt thing? Maybe. I mean, ultimately it falls on his plate, but you've got to make sure that the piss is hot, so to speak, as he would like to say. And you've got to figure out a way to get those guys motivated for every game, week in and week out. And you can't have these flat games where it just doesn't feel like they came fully prepared and fully ready to play. And again, I don't think it's been just against bad teams. I think sometimes it's been against good teams, neutral teams, bad teams. You're usually good for like 2 completely crap the bed games per season. Hopefully Green Bay's got them out of their system now in both of those games. But it definitely needs to be something that they figure out, because it's happened too often over the last 5-6 years where you just get these games where it doesn't look like they're ready to play at all. Panthers game in one stat: Packers led the NFL in week 10 with 53 yards per drive and lost 16-3 per Football 301. Y'all should check it out. Yeah, it is a very crazy stat. I mean, all the peripherals on that game, guys, was like Green Bay wins by like 10, or exactly what Vegas expected it to be. There was a little bit of like everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong in that game. Just like, even when you're forcing fumbles on a sack, the other team's picking it up and advancing it 8 yards. Like, that's the type of day that it was. And so, yeah, it's frustrating, no question about it. But I think if you look at some of the stuff they did in between, there was still a lot of good stuff out there. It didn't feel like it because they didn't capitalize on any of it. And you've got to figure out a way when you're putting those drives together to not fail on 4th down, miss a field goal, have a fumble, et cetera, and then have another drive that ends in an interception. Again, just Green Bay being its own worst enemy far too often. Most of the Packers' issues are from poor offensive line play. Poor line play is also how you get negative plays that kills drives. Fixing it is job 1. You don't want to change titles publicly. That's too much scrutiny, but Matt LaFleur should put Steno in the offensive line room with Butkus and telling them to fix it no matter what. You'll like my episode tomorrow, John. Then Hackett can take over all Steno's duties. We know the game planning with those guys is more than fine. Maybe that's already happening. Yeah, we don't know if it's happening already, but again, without spoiling too much, you'll definitely enjoy tomorrow's episode. I feel like there's too much groupthink going on Matt's stuff. He brings in outside consultants, but all from from a different coaching tree, bringing a consultant from the Belichick or Harbaugh trees. Yeah, I mean, they have players or coaches from different trees, right? Like Derek Ansley and Jeff Hafley, Rich Bisaccia. So I don't think it's all from the same tree. I get that Hackett has been, I understand, Getsy was kind of his own guy and things like that. But I do think that there's a lot of minds that are not just from that same coaching tree within the organization. So I don't think it has anything specifically to do with just that, if I'm being honest. All right, I'm going to get to the super chats really quick here. Logan, thank you for that. Appreciate you. Marcus, thank you for becoming a brand new member. Appreciate you. Mike feels like the Eagles by a tush push touchdown. I hope you're right. I hope you're wrong, Mike. I hope that doesn't happen. Packers winning on a tush push would be awesome. That'd be a way to kind of shove it back in Philly's face. But I just think this is going to be a very competitive game. And I think it could go either way. A lot of things that Philly does well that Green Bay does not do well against. And Philly's had its own struggles as well, including a lot of 3-and-outs, which would help Green Bay a ton because they've struggled to generate some of those. So we're going to see. It's going to be a very important game in the NFC and a very important game for our Green Bay Packers. William gifting out 5 Pack-A-Day memberships. William, you're awesome, my friend. Appreciate you doing that. Thoughts on people for calling Matt LaFleur to be fired? What could be changed? Go Pack Go. Yeah, we touched on this at the beginning and pretty much all week long, Riley. But I think overall in season, it's ridiculous. Again, I get the passion. I get the frustration. I get everyone wants it to be better. 8 games in, they've won 5 of them. They've only lost 2 of them. There's a long way to go. And this rest of the season will dictate where this organization goes, whether something needs to be done with Matt or whether it gets that contract extension in the offseason. I think everything's still on the table. I don't think Matt's a lead pipe lock to be back next year because I think you could still have some catastrophic results the rest of the year. I certainly don't think he's a lead pipe lock to get that contract extension in the offseason. So the rest of the season is going to dictate where this goes for Matt. It's as simple as that. And again, what I said earlier, they're not going to fire him in season anyway. There's nobody that's a better fix right now for this team. There's not a better head coach just like waiting, like, oh, that guy. Not without, even if you think Hafley's great, like we don't know, and shuffling a bunch of things, I don't think is what's best for this team either. So that I don't think is your answer. And then, again, I don't think that there is a logical reason to do it right now. I just think you let this play out and see where it is and then kind of go from there the rest of the year. So appreciate the question, but yeah, we've definitely gone over that quite a bit. Happy Friday. Play calling has been abysmal in the last 2 games. They aren't playing the best players on game day. Teams have seemed to dial into our defense and our Yak King is gone for the year. What are your thoughts? Other than that, it's going great though, Dan. The Kraft thing is brutal. It's beyond devastating. It absolutely kills some of the stuff on offense, although maybe it does force them to evolve a little bit. I don't think teams are necessarily dialed into the defense as much as teams are playing the offense that Green Bay is allowing them to play. Green Bay is dictating terms on defense. You're not really getting the explosive plays. Now, in this game, they ran the ball better than Green Bay would like them to. I think that was more of a technique thing. That wasn't anything that Carolina shocked them with. It just, they struggled with some technique things that they had not done really in the last year and a half with Jeff Hafley. They're going to need to get back to the basics on it this week and make sure that Saquon Barkley can't do the same thing. But the defense wants to say like, hey, we don't think you can drive down the field and we think you're going to make mistakes, but Green Bay is not generating enough mistakes by the offense. We talked about it. Only 3 generated mistakes this past week, one of which actually turned into a positive anyway, when you had the sack fumble that went into positive yardage. Outside of that, 1 tackle for loss by Micah Parsons, 1 interception by Xavier McKinney that basically got thrown right to him. And that was it. So to me, the defense is doing the dictating and they're deciding what you're going to be able to do, but they're not creating and generating enough explosive negative plays to either take the ball away or get the offense off the field. And that's what's, I think, being frustrating in that side of things. I agree in general about the play calling. I did talk about this earlier this week as well. There are a handful of plays in this game that Matt does a phenomenal job on, and the team just doesn't execute it. On the very first pass play of the game, Luke Musgrave's on the left side. He's doing like basically like a, he's kind of going like over the middle, but he's, I guess, a deep crosser for lack of a better term. He's kind of doing a deep crosser over the middle and he's wide ass open. He is wide ass open. It's going to be an explosive play, 40 plus yards, maybe even longer than that. Jordan's looking that way. He's got Luke down the field and he's got Tucker kind of short. I don't know if he just didn't look Luke Musgrave's way or what he saw on that play, but that's a beautifully, perfectly drawn up play on the first play of the game for a huge explosive to Luke Musgrave, and it didn't get completed there. Instead, it's a check down to Josh Jacobs. There's a play later in the game. I think this was in the red zone before halftime, if I remember correctly, where they had to settle for the field goal, which I think they made that one, right? I don't know. I forget the order of operations of which ones were made and which ones were missed. But Romeo Doubs comes on a deep post, and he's NFL open. So like he's got a half a step on the guy, and very NFL open. Should be a touchdown on the play. Panthers bring pressure inside, and Jordan sees that they're bringing pressure inside and sort of anticipates getting pressured. But the offensive line picks it up, and Jordan bails anyway. If he just stays in the pocket and keeps his eyes downfield, touchdown to Romeo Doubs. That's where the play's designed to go. It's going to be his read. But they flash color inside. He gets bothered by it. Even if he rolls out and replants, he might still be able to get Doubs. But instead, he continues to roll out, has to dirt a throw, and you get nothing out of it. Even the play, and I talked about this, I think, on the grades episode, the Savion Williams fumble. This is a very normal play to call in that situation. To run pass read. You're just counting numbers. We're going to run the foot. You're basically, you're calling a run play is what you're doing. All you're doing is calling a run play. Do you want that run to be with Josh Jacobs, or do you want it to be to Savion Williams? Do you want it with like Josh Jacobs with 6 blockers in front of him and like 7 or 8 defenders? Or do you want it to Savion Williams with 1 blocker in front of him and 2 defenders? Like that's your simple math equation. And so you're calling this run pass read. Jordan correctly sees that the box is stacked against Josh Jacobs and that the 2 defensive backs are playing off on Savion Williams. So simple. You're just going to flip it over to Savion Williams. Everything up until this point is good. The play call is fine. Jordan makes the right read and the right decision to get it out to Savion. It's a good trigger, and Green Bay is not going to have to be cognizant because teams are now triggering on this stuff a lot against Green Bay. But it's a good trigger. But even still, Romeo has the ability to make that block. He doesn't. And then Savion Williams compounds it by running up against the back of basically Romeo Doubs and then fumbling the ball. Those are execution issues that if they don't fumble there, and if you hit the big play to Musgrave on the opening drive, and maybe you don't even get to that fumble play, right? And if you get the touchdown to Romeo Doubs, Green Bay probably gets better point production. They probably win the game, and we're not even talking about the same sort of, concepts. But because the execution is poor on those plays, now it adds into the, other plays like the 3rd and 4th call on the screen pass, which is a brutal play call, a god-awful play call by Matt. By the way, I talked about this the other day. They called the exact same play the play before that. I don't know if you guys caught that. They called the exact same, three players blocking. Emmanuel Wilson, does his little skip to the outside, and Romeo Doubs on a slant on the right side. It's the exact same play call 2 plays in a row. They called it the first play. Jordan goes to Romeo on it, completes it, gets 6 yards on the play, sets up the 3rd and 4. And then they call the exact same play again. And this time he throws the screen. Defense is all over it. Again, I hate the screen call in that situation, but maybe Jordan could have even just gone to Romeo again. I think he could have on that play. And we're not talking about a stupid play call again. Romeo's 1-on-1. You got a good look. They probably complete it for a first down, and you end up probably getting points out of that drive. So not defending everything in its entirety by any stretch of the imagination. A lot that went really poor for Matt. In fact, my bigger issue with Matt in this game was being too over aggressive in some situations against some defenses where he knew he wasn't going to get looks to be aggressive on, to take those shots down the field. There's a play where they're playing in 6 coverage, playing deep and soft, and it's a 2 deep wide receiver route, and they're just surrounded by 6 defenders. The play to Christian Watson down the field. Now there's a check down on that play. It's another one where, again, Jordan makes a better decision there, just takes the check down or tries to hit Romeo maybe over the middle of the field rather than predetermining where to go with the throw. And again, maybe the play call doesn't look as stupid, but again, you're probably getting a little aggressive at that point of the game. So plenty to be frustrated with Matt. But I just think there, as always, as I try to say all the time, there's a lot of gray here. And at the end of the day, it all falls on Matt's plate, whether that's the play calling or the execution. It's one or the other. And if you're not getting the play calling and or the execution, that's still Matt's fault. But it feels like play calling is the buzzword. That's I don't like the play didn't work. I don't like the play calling. And on a lot of those plays, not all of them, but on a lot of those plays, There was opportunity there to execute the play and be effective, and the players were not. So that's my only point. It's not to shift. Again, if you want to shift blame, that's all it's doing is shifting blame from Matt, the play caller, to Matt, the coach, like Matt, the getting guys ready. It's not absolving Matt. I'm just saying, I think play calling just gets thrown around a little bit too easily, and it's not quite that simple. All right. Pinged service. First time watching, how would you say the play calling? That's beautiful timing. How would you say the play calling is bench? Should Matt LaFleur let Love throw more or keep trying to run? Again, I think that's somewhat of an oversimplification, but I do think, and I talked about it again for tomorrow's show as well, I do think this needs to be Jordan Love's offense. That doesn't mean take away Josh Jacobs or don't let him be involved or anything like that. But the perfect example of this is the 3rd and 4 screen call. I talked about it all week. I hate, and if Matt said it this week, those plays are feast or famine. I hate feast or famine, do or die. They're binary. They're going to work or they're not plays on 3rd or 4th downs. Would never, ever run it. Never, ever run it unless I knew like there was a clear and obvious tell and I knew like 100% we were going to convert, which again, you never quite know. And the reason I hate that is because it is binary. Either the defense is there and they read it and they're all over the play and it's shut down, or they didn't and you blocked it up and it's there. And there's no ad lib ability. In like, so on a pass play, Jordan has a progression, right? If route 1's not open, then maybe we can get to route 2. If route 2's not open, maybe we can get to route 3. If route 3's not, maybe we can get to the check down and the player on the check down can pick up a first down. Or if I get pressured or if the play's not there, maybe I can use my feet and make a play athletically that way. There's options on the play. When you run a swing pass like that or a screen pass like that, it's either it's there or it's not. And once you've thrown it, there's nothing you can do to get it back. It's just you're hoping to the football gods that you're going to be able to convert on it. I hate that in that situation. So to me, that's the perfect situation of let Jordan cook. I don't need you to scheme up. And I think that is, if you want to have a frustration, I think that's the thing. You don't have to get out. You don't have to be smarter. You don't have to be like, I'm going to call a play because I know what they're going to do in this play. And if we do this in that play, then I know that we're going to convert and I'm going to be smarter than them. No, it doesn't have to be that. Because they're going to be smart too at times, and they're going to outsmart you at times. So players, not plays. Put it in Jordan's hand. Who's your best receiver in that situation? Romeo is probably the best receiver on the field. Let's figure out the best way to get Romeo involved on this play, a route that he knows. Remember when Aaron and Jordy on 3rd and 5 had that little hitch throw that they hit like 99% of the time? It was free money because teams were so utterly afraid that if they played it under, Jordy was just going to burn by them. And Jordy sold it so well every single time that Jordy was going to press. And then all of a sudden he got to the go route, and then the corner turns and he flips his hips and Aaron knows exactly where he's going to cut off that route, and the ball's there, and they convert that 3rd and 5 every single time. I mean, I swear to God, it felt like every single time. And so you have to have that play, and you have to trust your quarterback and your best receiver. And again, even if that's not there, even if that play to Romeo is not there, maybe the number 2 or the number 3 or Jordan scrambling or a check down will get the job done. And instead you're calling up a schemed play, hoping to outsmart them, and it doesn't work and you're screwed. So yeah, I think there's a lot to work on, but I do think in those situations, those are the exact moments where you say it's Jordan Love time. Let's see if he can get us to the promised land. That's where I need to see it happen. Melvin McElrath. As Matt LaFleur right now lost a little mojo, the Matt LaFleur of old talking about giving teams haymakers, teams long gone. How does Matt get his mojo back? Execution plus play calling. Yeah, you guys are hitting on a lot of the topics. So my topic for tomorrow is the 12 things that the Green Bay Packers can do better right now, all right, to how to make this team better, right? Like quick fixes to make this thing start getting going in the right direction. This is definitely one that we talk about. It just feels like it's lacking energy. And I need to see the return of all gas, no brake. You just said a couple weeks ago, scared money don't make money, but yet the money seems very scared at the moment. It feels very, very afraid at the moment. So I need to see that mentality back of we are nobody's underdog. We have, all gas, no brake. Our piss is going to run hot. Whatever lame cliche, scared money don't make money. Whatever one you want to use. Awesome. But go with it, run with it, and have that mentality again, because I don't need to see these grinded out performances where it feels like you're on your heels the entire time. I need to see Green Bay doing the dictating, and I think they have to get back to that mentality if they want to be able to do that. Andy, what's good? Rank the 2014, 2020, 2021 playoff losses most heartbreaking to least in your opinion, and why. I'm curious what you think. Weston, this is happy hour, not depressed hour. This is happy hour. You're like, if you want me to rank the 5 best Green Bay Packers moments or something, let's do that. Why are we going through the worst moments on this Friday? I will oblige because you did super chat it, but all right. nothing comes close to 2014. I lived through 4th and 26. I lived through, the Rice non-fumble. I lived through the Terrell Owens play. We can go on, but 2014 is the most heartbreaking of all of them. 2020 and 2021 is an interesting conversation because 2020, they just got beat and shot themselves in the foot a lot, but there wasn't like that one moment. In 2021, the blocked punt was that moment, and that felt a little bit worse. So I would say 2021 felt a little bit worse than maybe 2020, but 2020 was the far more important game. So you can make an argument either way there. But I would say from like a stab you in the heart sort of moment, 2021 was a little bit worse than 2020 because of the circumstances of how it happened. But 2020 was the far more important game of the two. So 2014, 2021, 2020 in that order. Never ask again. Is getting the best players on the field more of a Goody or Matt LaFleur decision? It's Matt. It's got to be Matt. It's got to be the ability to read who your best players are and to get them on the field. And ultimately that falls under Matt's purview. So that's definitely a Matt situation. Now that doesn't mean that there's not pressure from people in the front office to play certain players or things like that. But at the end of the day, that all falls on Matt. All right. Where do we leave off? All right. Andy, do you think that the Packers and Matt LaFleur can get back to that under center, make every pass look like a run, make every run look like a pass style offense? A couple things. Right now, no. The reason I say that is a lot of that was like some of the bootleg stuff. Teams, I don't know if you guys have caught up on this at all. Teams have gotten really good at the bootleg stuff. So basically what's happening on any sort of like stretch bootleg sort of play, there is one designated player that is like usually the weak side defensive end that just beelines to the quarterback every single time. That weak side end doesn't have run responsibilities anymore like they used to in the past. Of the weak side run defender would close the gap on the backside or close the back door on the backside. And then the quarterback, if the defender went down, the quarterback would have that free bootleg, and then you'd have those throws down the field, or the quarterback could take off, right? Now, the edge defender, more often than not, is just beelining towards the quarterback. And if he doesn't hand it off, they're just dead to rights. So some of that bootleg action across the league, teams just aren't allowing you to do that anywhere near as much anymore. They're just blitzing a free guy and saying, if you keep it with your quarterback, he's getting drilled. Good luck. The other thing is that what we're seeing throughout the league in the past, you go, like 2 tight end formation or anything 2 wide receivers or less, right? So you're going heavier and only have 2 wide receivers on the field. The vast majority of teams were going to match you in base personnel. And now the NFL is saying, we're not going to match you in base personnel. We're still staying in nickel. You are not going to get us into situations where we don't have pass defense personnel on the field, because you are putting base personnel on the field to pass the ball. And we know that. We're going to force you to run the football. We want you to run the football. So teams, and even beyond that, I remember back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember like the full house play that Aaron would run usually to Greg Jennings, where it was like the post and then the out and then a post again. And it would be like usually out of like a full house formation. They would get into an obvious run look, and then they would fake the obviously play action pass. And, it would basically be a route where it would attack the middle of the field safety, and the safety was caught in no man's land. And Jennings was a master at that. And then eventually Jordy was a master at that as well, but Jennings was unbelievable at it. And they would score on that play. Like it felt like once a game, like they would get like a 70-yard explosive. It wasn't that often, but it was like probably like what, like one every like 3 games or something. And I always said to him, like, why are you playing the run first and then the pass? And it just didn't make any sense. I'm like, if they hand it off, you might give up like 5 to 8 yards. If they don't, you might give up an 80-yard touchdown. And teams now are playing pass to run, pass to run, pass to run. In the past, it was always we're going to stop the run first, and then we're going to get back and play the pass. And everything has flipped the dynamic of that. So the idea of, these multiple offenses, or we're going to make you do certain things. We're going to dictate by putting bigger personnel that you have to then counter with bigger It's why you're seeing some of the 6 offensive line looks, because the 6 offensive line looks, now teams are a little bit more likely to get into base personnel. And then you feel better passing the football when the teams are in base personnel. So there's this constant cat and mouse. There's the beautiful thing about football is once you think you got to figure it out, the league switches and now everyone's playing the pass and everyone's got lighter personnel in the field. You better be able to run the football. And so the final answer to this, Luke, is Green Bay is also not running the football well. So they don't give a crap about your run game. If you actually ran the football well, then yeah, maybe you're going to get that safety in the box, or maybe you're going to get some 4-3 personnel, or maybe you're going to make it so that you get some advantageous looks offensively. Or maybe guys are going to actually bite up when you fake the handoff. Right now, they're not. And so it doesn't really matter what your, sort of smoke and mirrors looks like. They ain't buying it. They're not buying it at all. It's like, it would almost be like, if you're trying to operate as a magician with the smoke and mirrors, and in the past, everyone only got to view you from the front, right? So everything that happened kind of behind, like you could dictate and they didn't get to see that aspect of it. Now it's like having to be a magician, but the crowd's full 360 around you and can see that the sword's not actually going through the girl, or the saw's not actually going through, right? So like they're just not buying the smoke and mirrors. They're seeing every aspect of your game. So you just have to be more creative. And what it is now, and how Matt LaFleur is saying, like, you got to earn the right to take those shots down the field. The NFL right now is a boxing match. It's jab, 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 knockout, right? If you go into a boxing match and you just start throwing haymakers and you're not setting them up for it, well, they're just going to cover the entire time, right? They're going to be prepared for that, and you're not going to be able to connect. In fact, you're probably going to be the one that's a little bit more susceptible. So you have to earn the right to throw that knockout punch by getting those jabs in. And right now in the NFL, you better be able to get those 5-6 yard runs and be able to jab, jab, jab. And then once they're like, all right, I'm getting jabbed to death, I'm going to lose. I need to be the one that, makes the knockout punch. So they're bringing people up and they're becoming more aggressive. All right, now play action, one-on-one. Maybe we can get that deep shot down the field to Christian Watson, right? So that's the way the NFL is being played. And some of the stuff that was kind of core to Matt's offense to begin with doesn't work the same right now. And that's where it's up to him and this offensive coaching staff to evolve it and get it to the point where it needs to be. Seems like the Packers were much better running the ball in 2023, even when Aaron Jones was out most of the time. Yeah, they just have to get back to figuring out something that works for them and is a solution running the football, because if not, it's going to make this rest of the season very, very difficult. There were signs in this game, though. There were signs in this game that it could be something that that they would potentially be able to do. All right, give me a second here. All right, where'd our comment go there? We're going to take Luke down, and we are going to get to our, nope, not that one. This one. There we go. We're going to get to our sleeper picks. We're going our international game on Sunday morning. We got 3 this week. Michael Penix, longest completion greater than 33.5 yards. Darnell Mooney's greatest completion, or reception, I should say, greater than 17.5 yards. So I'm expecting a big completion between Michael Penix and Darnell Mooney. And then Tyler Warren's largest completion or longest completion, fewer than 19.5 yards. Get those picks in over at Sleeper. Best part is you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Easy for me to say. My favorite thing is like for these international games and there's only one game on, just adds a little bit of fun and excitement to it. Check it out over on Sleeper. Terms and conditions apply. Check out Sleeper for details. Available in over 25 states nationwide. So if you haven't checked it out yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Go find them over on Sleeper. Also, they do an amazing job with just your normal fantasy football leagues and things like that. So cannot recommend Sleeper enough. All right, let's get back to our normal layout here and back to our comments. Let's get back to the super chats. All right, where do we leave off on super chats? Every presser, Matt LaFleur says, that one's on me. My play calling has to be better. I'm tired of hearing him apologize for his play calls over the last 2.5 years. All right, let's talk about this. This is a fun conversation. Matt's, hey, that's on me sort of shtick worked really great at the beginning of his career. He's winning a lot of games. The team was ahead of schedule. They were going to NFC championships, things like that, right? Things were very good. And in the couple losses that you have per year, hey, it's on me. I need to be better. It starts with me. It plays well. When you're losing more games or it's not going as well, then it's just like, yeah, it is on you, idiot. Of course it's on you. Fix it. Why aren't you fixing it? All right. So let's start there. What I will tell you is it more important for Matt to get the buy-in from his players or get the buy-in from the court of public opinion? Now, if Matt feels like he's on the hot seat, all right, maybe he changes his tone up a little bit. Maybe there's a different sort of, mood or kind of tenor that he takes. He's covering for his guys in a lot of situations. Now, some of it, he is to blame. He does need to be better, and he is taking responsibility for something that he legitimately messed up. But on a lot of the times, there are things that went wrong. Some of those play calls that we talked about earlier, where they're just extremely poorly executed. He's not saying, yeah, my quarterback threw a YOLO ball. What do you want me to do? He's not saying, yeah, we had actually an open Romeo Doubs in the back of the end zone. We need to be able to stay in the pocket and hit that throw. He's not saying, yeah, my rookie receiver decided to run right into Romeo Doubs, who decided not to block, and then he fumbled the ball. He's continuing to take the blame and not put it on his guys in the media. And so for him, at this time, it's more important for the players to know that he has their back, and that he's not going to throw them under the bus, and that he's going to take responsibility. And then it's up to the players to respond to that and say, well, he's taking the he's being run over by the bus for us. Let's go and play better for him. It just depends. If he wanted to play to the court of public opinion, he would probably change up that old song and dance and change up the talking points a little bit. But does he probably need to anyway? Probably. But that's all he's doing, is he's just covering for his players and taking the responsibility on himself. And again, in some cases, I think he's being genuine. I think in most cases, it's just a talking point, right? So yeah, it doesn't play well right now with the fans, and nor probably should it. And it doesn't play well, again, to the court of public opinion. Probably still plays very well in the locker room. And until that starts becoming an issue, there's probably no issue. I've talked about it until Matt loses the locker room, which I don't think there's any sign of whatsoever. That's the only thing that's going to get him sort of fired right now. So he's continuing to take care of the guys in the locker room. That's all that is. That's all it is. Fernando, thank you for that super chat. Appreciate you. How about moving Big E to guard? Is the center free agent market that barren? We'd still suck at center, but we'd also be getting our all-pro guard back at his best spot. Mike Wall and I have talked about this. I am of the belief, and I will always lean on Mike for, offensive line stuff. Mike is more of like, hey, let's put him at guard. We know he's good at guard. He's not good at center right now, which again, if you're choosing between my take here and Mike's, choose Mike's. That's the one you want to choose. What I've seen with my eyes, I don't think Elton's playing good football. There were some signs in the last couple of games. There was some bad stuff in this last game too, but in general, he's not playing anywhere near up to his capabilities. When I watch it, for me, that has far less to do with guard or center. That is pure technique and effort and how bad do you want it. I don't think that changes if he's at guard. I just don't. Is it maybe incrementally better? Maybe. Is it maybe worth finding out? Maybe / probably. But to me, just what I've seen on tape, I don't think it matters if you play him at tackle, guard, center, left side, right side, I don't love what I'm seeing on tape from Elton Jenkins. I don't think the position matters. I think you end up in the same situation overall. If anything, center should kind of make it a little bit easier. You're the one doing a lot of the double teaming from time to time. At guard, you can end up a little bit more on an island. So I don't think it changes all that much. Am I getting close to the point of like, hey, let's throw some crap on a wall and see what sticks and just try some stuff? Sure. And if you want it, to me, where I would go is see what Sean Ryan can do at center, move Elton back to left guard, Banks back or Banks to right guard, and then keep Walker and Tom at tackle and keep, Morgan on the bench. That's probably where I would go with it. Here's where I think you run into complications. Now Elton's moving back to guard. He's probably a little bit rusty doing that, although probably more comfortable. Sean Ryan's never played starting center in his career. He's, filled in a little bit here and there, but he's never played starting center in his career. And he's not exactly been one of your best linemen either. And now you're taking Aaron Banks, who has actually played I would say almost pretty well when being put out there at left guard right now. Like he's actually, I think, showing good signs of momentum and progress. Now you're having him play a position I don't think he's ever played in the NFL before. I think he's been only at left guard. So I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me on that 100%. But either way, he hasn't played right guard in a while. So now you're having him learn that kind of new on the fly. I don't think that probably helps you either. So I think you're better off just getting these guys to play with better technique and really working on the fundamentals. But my gut says like, just try some crap. Just go with it. My head says I don't think it's going to work either way. But yeah, at some point, maybe you do just have to try something new. All right. Basashi announced that McManus is kicking Monday. I did not see that since we've been on here. Did we get any other news? Basashi said he's banking on his unit being pissed off by how it played in its playoff loss to Philly. We'll see. And yes, says that McManus will be the kicker. There we go. So McManus, the primary kicker on Monday. So there, yeah, no competition there, I guess. It is Brandon McManus. Sergeant Dan, thank you so much. Appreciate that, my friend. If your players suck, the coach takes the smoke and straps ass behind the scenes. He does also have culpability for some calls, but the guy doesn't play. Yes, but it is also his job to get those guys playing at their best of their ability. And I think you can look around this team right now and make an argument that they're not doing that. So that, again, coach wears a lot of hats and all of them need to be pretty shiny and sparkly. If you've got one bad one, it's going to come back to haunt you. So whether it's play calling or whether it's getting your guys to play at the top of their ability, motivating guys, getting them to play with energy, whatever the case may be, it all sort of falls on the coach's lap, and you got to be able to get these guys playing at the best that they can possibly play at. All right, William coming through with another super chat. Looking ahead to next year, over under on 3.5 offensive linemen drafted next year. Definitely under. They only have six picks at the moment, I think. So drafting 4 offensive linemen out of 6 picks would be pretty aggressive, but definitely 2 to 3. I'd be stunned if they didn't draft 2 to 3. But that's not even necessarily the way to go. And I mean, finding offensive linemen who are capable of coming in and playing right away is pretty tough at the moment. That can be a little bit of a fool's errand as well. But some draft and develop and getting some guys who are ready the next couple of years is going to be important. I think the interesting question, William, is how many of the current offensive linemen are back next year? I think that's an interesting question. Aaron Banks, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan. I think those are the only 3 that are lead pipe locks to be back next year. You might say, well, Aaron Banks could get off the contract. You could. He's fine enough where you're not going to take the huge cap hit to do that. So I won't lead pipe lock Aaron Banks, but I'd come pretty damn close to locking him in. I think like Banks, Tom, and Morgan are your only 3 for sures. And you're maybe not even for sure that Morgan can start. So like Zach Tom is going to be a starter. Aaron Banks is almost surely going to be a starter. You're probably going to have to start Jordan Morgan somewhere. And then who's the rest of your offensive line? I think that's the really interesting question. All right, friends. Thank you for the super chat. Sorry I didn't get to everyone today. If you want to make sure I get to your question, make sure to sign up for that members Q&A, because I do try my very, very best to get to everyone's question in members Q&A. I wish I had a little bit more time to get to everyone's here. It would probably take me another hour and a half to get to everyone's though. You're sorry, Anthony Belton too. My bad. Anthony Belton will be back as well, whether or not he's starting though. I guess I meant like of the primary 6, but you're totally right on Anthony Belton. And yes, he probably will be starting as well. There was one other question. Bryce, I wanted to get this one really quick. Is this team closer to imploding or breaking out? Imploding or breaking out, Andy? I'm just going to believe that it's breaking out. We're about to find out very fast over the next few weeks. I think breaking out. Really hope not imploding, but we'll just have to wait and see. That's why the journey is greater than the end, and you got to enjoy the process along the way. Hopefully it comes out in the wash and turns out very, very well at the end of things. I appreciate you guys a ton. I'll see you guys tomorrow for that episode. What are the 12 things that Green Bay can do right now to fix this team? That'll be up later today for members, potentially very shortly here. And then what do we got? Sunday, I don't know what I'm going to be talking about Sunday yet. So surprise episode Sunday. Mike Wall's film breakdown of the Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow afternoon. It's already up there for members. And then Monday, I will be doing a live pregame show. I'm going to try to do a live post-game show as soon as I get back. It'll be super late at night, but we'll probably try to go live for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then, yeah, it's going to be a very fun Packers-Eagles game. So buckle in. Could be very bumpy, could be very fun, but will be interesting to see what happens one way or the other. Got to stop doing that. Until next time, though, and as always, go Pack Go.